Alright, let's talk a little bit about sprouting in a jar and growing microgreens. Now both of them work really well, but I usually do microgreens and you don't see a whole lot of sprouts on my channel. I'm going to explain why. Now this is really important and you might keep it in mind if you go to the grocery store to buy either one of these. Now both of them taste great and they grow really quickly. And that's why I like it, is so that you can grow your food over and over and over again. Sprouting has been around longer than microgreens, so we're going to talk about that first. Now this is really easy. You grow it in a jar, you just have one of these mesh tops, helps a lot. So all you have to do is put your seeds in here, and a couple times a day you just take it and rinse it out and invert it. A lot of people know how to do this. Now this one might look funny because all the sprouts are up here. Usually they would fall down, but once they start getting packed in, and you can see this jar is a little more slim in the middle. So I knew that would happen. So I wanted to grow it this way so that you could see after I invert it and drain the water out, that's kind of the residual that's left after it sits for a couple of hours. Doesn't look real nice, does it? You probably wouldn't drink that, right? Now this is one concern with sprouts. If anything funky happens and it gets into that right there, such as bacteria, when you start to fill up your jar to rinse it out, all of that touches every one of your sprouts. Now you may not have noticed this because you don't see this down here. Usually your sprouts would fall back down into your jar and your sprouts would be sitting inside of that. So you just fill it up and then all of this would go and touch potentially every one of your sprouts. So that's why it's important to take these and rinse them really well. You also have a problem with the seed holes. Once those come off, your plants are growing, but those start to decompose. And being a high moisture environment in here, that can cause mildew really quick. Also, mold, mildew, bacteria can float into the top. It has food, water, air, perfect environment. This is why before the term microgreens was even coined, before anyone even said the word microgreens, there was concern about growing sprouts. So if you buy these in a grocery store, you're going to have to trust that whoever did this was really careful with the procedure. Now I don't know about the rest of the world, but at least here in this state, in Florida, if you go to sell sprouts or microgreens, there are different rules that you have to follow. It's a lot more difficult to sell sprouts because the potential for bacteria is a lot higher. Microgreens, on the other hand, are safer because all of that stuff that might be happening down here, you're not eating any of that. You're harvesting the top. Now I'm using these pea shoots because they grew really tall and they're going to magnify the importance. Usually your microgreens are only going to be 1 or 2 inches. But even so, if anything's happening down in here where bacteria and that might start to grow, your microgreens grow above it. And even when you water this, which we bottom water these, once the roots start going to the bottom, we add and change our water down here. And I stop putting water in the top. This stays dry. Your microgreens grow up above it. If anything happens down here, you're a lot more safer harvesting and eating this up here. This, everything is damp and potentially hazardous. Now these I've grown with no soil medium at all. They're just peas in this tray. You can also use soil. You can also use coco coir. We've used sand. You can use perlite. There's a bunch of different grow mediums you can use. But whatever you're doing with your microgreens, all of that growing and all of that stuff is happening down here in this environment. Your microgreens grow up above it and you harvest the top. So all in all, these are both great ways to grow. They're easy ways to grow your own food. Everybody should know how to do this. This one, growing microgreens, is safer than sprouting, but there's nothing wrong with sprouting. You just have to take the proper precautions. With sprouts, you want to be a lot more sanitary. Make sure everything's sterilized and cleaned out before you start. Rinse it 2 or 3 times a day with clean water. Now what I like to do is after I invert it, drain it for a few hours, I like to flip it up. Let some airflow get in there. Also, if you don't have it packed this dense, when you rinse it, you can take this lid off and a lot of these seed holes will actually flow out of the top while you rinse it. So you can see how damp that is. And that's just the nature of doing it this way. So easy way to grow, tastes delicious. Just take your precautions with that. If you want to do it an easy way, be a little safer, not worry too much, grow you some microgreens. Something like that. So hopefully you understand the major difference in growing microgreens and growing sprouts. They're both good. Learn how to grow your own food. Share it with other people. Live to inspire. Keep on growing. Be the change. We'll catch you next time.